Good morning, everybody. Pastor Steve here, and I'm so thankful you've joined me for today's devotion. While you're opening your Bible to Psalm 58, I want to remind you that this Sunday at First Baptist, Fuzz Rana, who is the president, the CEO of Reasons to Believe out in California, is going to be here sharing. He is a trained biologist, a great apologist for the gospel, and he's going to be answering some really important questions during his message in each of our three services. You don't want to miss this. And if there's somebody you know who's a skeptic, who has questions about biology and about faith, invite them to come and hear Dr. Rana. It'll be a good experience for them. All right, today, Psalm 58. And when I read this psalm, what I thought about and wrote in my journal concerned God's judgment, especially the judgment day, because sometimes people react very negatively to the idea that there's a judgment and that God judges. Some people even scoff at it and laugh at it and don't think there's any such thing as a great judgment day. And in Psalm 58, he essentially declares at the end that a day is coming when they will all recognize there really is a judgment, and that's a good thing. He begins in Psalm 58 in verses 1 and 2 by saying, "Do you indeed speak righteousness, O gods, little g, false gods or powerful people?" The end of verse 1, "Do you judge uprightly, O sons of men?" He's kind of being sarcastic, so to speak, and saying, "Hey, all you false gods, all you powerful people, all you mighty people, you don't speak righteousness, and you don't judge with justice." He said, in fact, in verse 2, "In your heart you work unrighteousness." In your heart mean your motivations. "And on earth you weigh out the violence of your hands." You have all this plotting on the inside, and it issues that shows up in how you take advantage and mistreat other people. He continues in verse 3 and says, "The wicked are estranged from the womb. These who speak lies go astray from birth." We're born with a sinful nature, and there are some people, they're just bad from the get-go, and they stay bad and get worse, harming other people. And so in verses 6 and following, he begins praying that God will judge them and discipline them and punish the wicked. And in verse 10 mentions that the righteous will rejoice when God does that. But what caught my attention is verse 11. Verse 11, he says, "And men will say." Now, up to this point, men, they do all this violent stuff and they seem to get away with it. But he says on the judgment, a day is coming, the judgment day, when men will say, "Surely there is a reward for the righteous. Surely there is a God who judges on earth." All the people who say, "I'm getting by with it, God's not going to judge, there's no judgment day," a day is coming when all of them will recognize there really is a God who judges the wicked, and there really is a God who rewards the righteous. And that's a good thing. Because if God does not judge, he's not worth being God. If he just lets evil skate by and there's never accountability, there's never justice, there's never judgment, what kind of God is that? See, people argue there's not going to be a judgment. I'm not going to answer to God because they don't want to be held accountable. But when push comes to shove, they realize that ultimately, if there's not accountability, if there's not justice, if there's not judgment, life's not fair and there's no God. And so when they see that God actually judges, they'll begin to realize, you know what? It's needed. It's necessary. And he really is God. because a real God would judge. And real judgment by the real God, when you really think about things, it's necessary. Or life is just chaos. The judgment of God is, in part, evidence of God's existence. That's the word for today, and I'll see you tomorrow as we read Psalm 59 and then get set next week to look at John chapter 1. God bless you, everybody.